If you have played the original Elden Ring, you might be thinking, well, I handled that just fine, Nightreign should be a walk in the park, right? Yeah, not quite. Even though a lot of enemies, weapons, and animations might look familiar, the gameplay in Nightreign is a whole different beast. No, seriously, the mechanics are changed up so much that even seasoned Souls-like veterans can get absolutely wrecked by the very first boss. That's why I decided to put this video together. Today we're going to break down the core mechanics, the classes, and most importantly, how to actually play the game in a way that lets you level up fast, grab decent gear, and face the boss with a real shot at winning. But before we dive into that, let me quickly go over what a typical run looks like and how this game differs from the original Elden Ring. Nightreign is a co-op multiplayer roguelike, where you and two teammates are dropped in a randomly generated map. Your main objective is to level up and gear up as much as possible before the clock runs out and you're forced into a boss fight. So yeah, think of PUBG or Fortnite, but instead of fighting other players at the end, you're going head to head with a big nasty boss with huge amounts of HP. Now, technically, you can go in under-leveled and try to beat the boss with your starting gear, but good luck with that. It's much harder. After each expedition, you'll earn what are called relics, which you can use to make your character stronger, so your next run gets a little bit easier. That's Nightreign in a nutshell. Alright, let's get into what you actually need to do to consistently finish most of your runs. First things first, you have to choose your class. At the beginning, you've got 7 classes to choose from, with an 8th one unlockable later on. The starting lineup is Wielder, Guardian, Iron Eye, Duchess, Recluse, Raider, and Executor. The final one, Revenant, unlocks as you progress throughout the game. Now, here's the key thing. Unlike the original Elden Ring, you don't really build up your character from scratch. There's no traditional stat leveling. Instead, each class has a predefined stat scaling, and every time you level up, your character improves based on that scaling. You can check your class's scaling in the codex at your base. For example, the Guardian has S scaling in Vitality, B in Strength, and C in Dexterity. So he's a solid tank, but not the best damage dealer. The Executor, on the other hand, only has B in Vitality, but gets S in Dexterity, meaning he's much squishier but can dish out way more damage with dex-based weapons. So here's my advice. Pick your class based on the kind of weapons you enjoy using. If you're into swords, one-handed or two-handed, go for Wielder. Guardian's your classic tank, usually pairs great with a shield and a spear. Iron Eye is all about bows. Duchess is a hybrid. She uses both magic and dex-based weapons. Raider is for people who wants to dual-wield giant weapons, preferably axes. He's got insane strength scaling but trash dexterity. Recluse is your typical spellcaster. He has a lot of faith and intelligence. Executor, as I said, has a lot of dexterity and comes with a parry skill, so if you're into parry-heavy playstyles, he's your guy. And Revenant, he's focused on summons but can work as a caster too. Also, important tip, you'll usually find weapons that naturally align with your class's scaling. The game doesn't show your weapon stat scaling directly, which kinda sucks, so sometimes it's not clear whether a weapon is actually good for your build. Luckily, before starting an expedition, you can hop into the training arena and test out every single weapon in the game, and also check their stat scaling. The more your weapon scaling lines up with your class scaling, the better it will perform. Now, while you're in the training arena, you can also try out every character and get a feel of how they play. Every class comes with 3 unique things: an active skill, an ultimate, and a passive ability. I'm not gonna break down all of them here since it's going to take like half of this video, but for now just remember, your skills aren't there to just sit on cooldown. Use them as frequently as possible. Some deal heavy damage, some debuff enemies, some buff allies, and some do all of the above. Also, here's pro tip. Most ultimates, if not all, make you temporarily invincible while casting. Plus, they often stagger bosses, which means you can interrupt their big attacks and get some breathing room. Now, let's talk casters, because I know a lot of people love playing magic builds, but in Nightreign it's a bit different. First of all, there's no mana flasks. You cannot chug a blue bottle whenever you're low on FP. Instead, you'll need to use special consumables, which are called starlight shards. You can either buy them from merchants or find in the chests. Of course, you can restore your mana simply by using a Site of Grace, but obviously you cannot do that during a boss fight. If you're playing as the Recluse, your active skill actually regenerates mana, which helps a lot. The second big thing that you have to keep in mind before choosing to be a spellcaster is that spells are tied to weapons. That means that staff you picked up already comes with 2 preset spells. You don't get to choose them. So yeah, it can be a little frustrating if you're used to customizing your spell loadout. Personally, I'm not really a fan of how magic works here, but if that doesn't bother you, go for it. Just beware that it plays quite differently compared to magic build in other From Software games. Alright, now that you've picked a class and got a feel for how it plays, let's talk about what to actually do once you drop into a run. The absolute first thing that you should always check before starting an expedition is what elemental damage the final boss is weak to. That'll tell you what kind of weapon you should be looking for. For example, the first boss is weak to holy, second to poison, third to fire, fourth to lightning, and so on and so forth. Hitting the boss with the right damage type not only boosts your DPS but also makes it easier to stagger them. So where do you find the right weapon? Just look at the icons on the map. Let's say you see a fire symbol. That means the boss of that area is likely to drop a weapon with fire damage. Now, if you don't see a zone with the right elemental on your map, that's not the end of the world. But if you do see it, absolutely go for it. The drop chance isn't 100%, but it's high enough to be worth the effort. So what should you actually be doing the moment you land? The absolutely biggest tip I can give you is don't waste time. Your leveling window is limited and the timer is always ticking. You don't need to kill every single mob or loot every trash chest in sight. You always want to know where are you going and why. Don't stand around comparing upgrades or debating gear for 30 seconds. See something usable, grab it and keep moving. Sure, if you're just starting out, take a second to read what the upgrades actually do. That's totally fine. But later on, especially against harder bosses, you won't have time to hesitate. Just to let you know, experienced players grab what they need instantly. Yeah, ideally you'd stop by, read every item description, maybe even ask your teammates if they want something you picked up. But realistically, you don't have that luxury. At first, you might think that it's not a big deal, but second you die on a boss who you almost killed, that moment you realize that one level or one good item would make all the difference. So yeah, if you get something useful, take it. If you grab something better suited for your teammates, toss it to them quickly and keep going. Nightreign is all about making fast decisions, but trust me, it gets much easier with practice. When it comes to clearing areas, like I said, don't waste your time on every single mob. Right after you land and clear your first camp, level up immediately and start hunting for bosses. Bosses are your best source of runes, and they also drop rare upgrades and special weapons. So when you enter a camp or castle, skip the trash mobs. Just head straight for the boss. Use your skills, use your consumables, and don't hold back. Rushing bosses early on is 100% worth it, because again, time is your most valuable resource. Now sure, if you're new and don't know where the bosses are yet, no problem. Just follow your teammates. After 5-10 rounds, you'll memorize where most bosses are located in each zone. And here's a pro tip. After killing a boss, you'll usually find a Site of Grace near them. Use it to spend your runes, heal up and refill your mana. It's very important because you always want to have as high as a level as possible, because the higher your level is, the better damage you deal, which means you can kill the next boss more quickly. You get the point. So yeah, your main goal during day 1 is to kill as many bosses as you can and power up as much as possible. But here's the thing, not all bosses are equal. Some are just too tough for the early game. On day 1, stick to the easier bosses, the ones in the camps, ruins, castles and shrines. After the first day ends, the zone shrinks, you'll fight a mid-boss and then move into day 2. That's when you can start pushing for harder bosses. Harder bosses will be marked on your map at the beginning of day 2, and also you can find plenty of them in special locations like Central Castle, the Lava Biome, Frost Zone, Scarlet Rot Area, and the city. Each of these has its own quirks, which we'll cover in another video, but for now just know, harder zones equals harder bosses, boss equals more runes and also better gear drops. Oh, and by the way, just because an enemy doesn't have boss health bar doesn't necessarily mean they aren't a boss. Usually if they hit hard and feel like a boss, they probably are one. Don't ignore those mobs. So to sum it up, day 1, kill as many weaker bosses as you can. Day 2, after the mid boss, move into the tougher zones and farm the big guys. A common rookie mistake that I usually see is trying to take on a day 2 boss on day 1. Best case scenario, you waste your entire day fighting just one boss, which will not be worth it. And worst case is your whole team dies, you lose a level and your runes, and you've got nothing to show for it. Or you just run out of time and ditch the boss before he is dead, which honestly feels even worse. Speaking of dying, here's how it works. Every time you die, you drop your runes and lose one level. If you die again before picking them up, that level and those runes are gone for good. But, and this is important, that lost level is dropped as runes. So if you manage to grab them before dying again, you're fine. Yeah, sure, you lost some time, but no permanent damage as some may think. So yeah, dying sucks, but it's not the end of the world. And honestly, even though the max level is 15, as long as you hit around level 12, you'll be fine for the final boss. As long as you got solid gear and at least few decent upgrades. Since I brought it up, let's talk about upgrades. One of the most important is the flask upgrade. You start every run with just 3 flasks, which honestly isn't much. To get more, you'll need to find Marika shrines. They are those little statues scattered around the map. There are always 3 of them per map, and ideally you would want to hit at least 2 during your run. Otherwise you'll be running out of heals fast, and that's honestly a game changer against final bosses. So when you're planning your route, always prioritize Marika shrines. Also, there are a few other side objectives worth hitting too, like Evergales and mines. To access Evergale, you need a stone sword key, which you can usually find in a metal chest inside a ruined shrine or in a small castle. Evergale bosses are mid-tier. Not too easy, not too hard. They can be done or either day 1 or 2. Mines, on the other hand, are super useful because the bosses inside usually drops a tier 2 smithing stone. Which brings us to another key point. Weapon rarity is what truly affects your damage. Here's the thing, most of weapons in Nightreign deal very similar base damage, assuming they scale with your class. What really boosts your DPS is the weapon's rarity, and any weapon can be upgraded to any rarity. So yeah, even your starter gear can carry you through the whole game if you upgrade it. To go from gray to blue, you'll need a tier 1 smithing stone. To go from blue to purple, you'll need a tier 2 stone, which, like I said, drops from the mine boss. Upgrading your weapon to legendary can be done in special level location, but unfortunately it doesn't spawn every time. To actually upgrade your weapon, you'll need to find a forge on the map. Usually there's a merchant nearby who sells usable stuff, including tier 1 smithing stones. Another cool mechanic that you have to know about is every weapon or item you found, including shields and staffs, comes with a random passive effect. And get this, the passive still works even if the item is not equipped in your hands. They just have to be in your inventory. So say you find a two-handed sword with a passive that buffs arrow damage. You should totally put it in your archer's inventory just for the bonus. There's no weight system in the game, so in theory you want to fill all 6 gear slots with stuff that gives passive bonuses. Though realistically that's easier said than done. One thing to watch out for, some passive effects are only active if the item is actively equipped. You'll know it's one of those by the red hand icon on the item. But here's the trick, even those can still work if the item is equipped but deactivated. So for example, on a bow build you can equip a red hand weapon in your offhand, then put it away and still get the buff without needing to actually use the weapon. Alright, let's get to the final boss fight. This one's pretty similar to what you would expect from any other Souls-like. Dodge as much as you can, deal damage when there's an opening, and try not to panic. But here's the catch, you pretty much only have one attempt. Yeah, your teammates can revive you by hitting your body a few times after you go down, but each time you die it gets harder and harder to bring you back. So honestly, the worst thing that you can do in a boss fight is die, because while while your teammates are trying to res you, they're very vulnerable, and if they go down too, the game is over. So I recommend that if boss is focusing you, forget the damage and just focus on dodging. That way your teammates can heal up, reposition, and safely land their hits while the aggro's on you. Now, whether you win or lose the expedition, you'll still get relics at the end of each run. Relics come in 3 tiers: small, medium, and large, and each one gives your class a permanent bonus. To actually equip a relic, its color has to match a socket on your class chalice. You can buy new chalices at the merchant back at your hub using currency earned from runs, win or lose. You can also buy random relics there if you want to gamble a bit. Besides the random ones, the game also has unique relics. Some drop from bosses, others are unlocked through what's called remembrances. These are class-specific quest lines that unlock new chalices and special relics tailored also to that specific class. I highly recommend doing them, they're super valuable. To start a remembrance, check the journal in one of the hub rooms. Fair warning though, some of these quests are kinda vague or tricky to follow, so if you're stuck, don't be afraid to look up a guide. And yeah, I'll probably cover them in future videos too. And that's gonna wrap it up for this guide. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos on Nightreign, especially when we dive deeper into some trickier aspects of the game. Thanks for watching, my name is Eric Rain, and I'll see you in the next one.